Hi everybody, I'm Bill Whittle here with my friend Andrew Klavan, who you can see is wearing the very latest style of Google glasses, but what's not immediately obvious is he's also wearing the experimental Google underwear. And
God,
you don't really want to know what kind of information that stores and transmits. Andrew, your question today comes from Hoban Washburn. I hope it's his real name because it's like an awesome, great name. Yeah. And the question is this: can Eric Holder and some of the IRS personnel be prosecuted for the illegalities committed under their leadership? I know we're going to be right on the same page with this.
Well, can they? Yes.
Will they? No. Thank you very much for your question, Hoban. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
You know,
Bingo.
Our friend Ben Shapiro and I were discussing this, and Ben was basically saying that Obama at this point could commit murder. You know,
we were blow the head off of a puppy.
Strangle Michelle. You know, it's like, oh, she ticked me off.
That would get his numbers up.
But you know, I really do think it's true, and I think it is because of our pathology, or the left's pathology about black people. I think that's what it comes down to.
Precisely correct, which is why they're in office.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think that, you know, one thing I don't like hearing from conservatives is this idea that somehow there's no reason for this. I mean, there's true despicable racism in this country, of a kind that we can no longer really imagine. I mean, you know, people who would just commit outright murder and get off because the jury was white and the victim was black and things like that, and the segregation that was dreadful, all done by Democrats, of course, but nevertheless, it really was a problem. And like every sin, it comes back to get you in terms, you either rationalize it away, or it comes back to get you in terms of shame. And the shame that we felt and the correction for that shame, I think, were right and proper. I think white people corrected for that shame over the course of several decades, and they did it successfully. They did it successfully. I don't think racism, institutional racism, exists any longer.
Or societal racism. It's intolerable.
It's intolerable, and I think it is, you know, it is basically gone. That doesn't mean you're not going to meet a racist. That doesn't mean that people are not going to have some kinds of racist, you know, like microaggressions and things like that. Yeah. But if you're living for that day, when those things are gone, you're living for nothing, because that's never going to happen. The point is that huge structure of bigotry is gone. Therefore, this excess of shame, which has been ginned up and kept alive by race baiters and the media, is a pathology. It's a pathology. So to tell me that I should vote for Barack Obama so that we can have a black president, absurd. To tell me that I object to his leftist and stupid ideas because I don't like black people, absurd. This guy would no more be president without like this system of affirmative action, basically, and shame that has been baked in to the American mind than I would be, that I could be president. And Eric Holder, one of the worst attorney generals ever, one of the most politicized departments. Remember when Bush was, you know, hounded for firing some of the attorneys that were under it was his right to fire. This guy has been a completely politicized attorney general. The corruption at the IRS is unspeakably bad. That is, the IRS is the most powerful institution in the country. Its corruption is appalling. It's appalling, and it should be cleaned out with fire and sword. It's just not going to happen, because nobody is going to say that this president is one of the most corrupt presidents we've ever had, one of the most empty presidents we've ever had, one of the most incompetent presidents we've ever had, and they're not going to say it because he's black and Holder is black and the structure that they brought in is black. The same reason, you know, the incompetent people who ran Detroit were allowed to run it into the ground. And I just think it's a pathology.
You know, I have to tell you, I'd never quite seen that before. When Eric Holder, the only attorney general ever to be censored or whatever whatever Congress did with him, held in contempt, was it? Yeah. Is being replaced with Loretta Lynch, another black person. I had always assumed sort of the kind of offensive nature of that. Like, here's a person with our kind of radical ideology and our left-wing ideology. What you talked about in terms of the defense of in terms of it being a shield that allows them to commit these horrific transgressions of the law without paying the price for it, that was not something I'd ever really seen before. But that's really what it is, right? It's like it's Frodo's cloak of invisibility. I can do whatever I want to, and as long as I can retreat into this, you know, well, you're racist because of this, then you're safe. You can commit more appalling crimes and misdemeanors. The fact that going to the question, the fact that Eric Holder has committed God knows how many genuinely jailable offenses. The president, it's like you said, it's not like Obama is impeachable. It's like he would never have been elected or reelected if the people ever knew anything about him. And I find it so ironic and so indicative of how the left has such selective memory about things that Geraldine Ferraro, who was in fact well before Hillary Clinton, the darling of the Democratic Party, she was the first woman on the national ticket in 1984 with Mondale against Reagan. Geraldine Ferraro, whose Democratic Party credentials were impeccable, said not only would he not be president, we never would have heard of this guy if he'd been white. And she was ostracized, cut off the same way our colleague David Mamet was. When Mamet made that statement about, I'm a conservative, he lost 99% of his friends. Geraldine Ferraro was pushed off the cliff, to die on the rocks below, because she stated something that was immediately obvious to anyone who had half a brain.
Our friend Andrew Breitbart used to say that it was kind of like a Malamar, this tremendous corrupt white center was protected by a thin crust of blacks on the outside.
Wow, that's interesting.
It really is true, because if you want to know how much the left cares about black people or women or gays, simply present them with a black person like Clarence Thomas who's not on their side, and suddenly the filth that comes out of their mouths, it's despicable. The stuff they said about Condoleezza Rice, I won't say no conservative, but no respected conservative would ever say it. I've never heard it either. And I think that tells you that it's not about the color of Barack Obama's skin, it's about his leftism. He is simply a foil for leftism. If a black conservative were in office, they'd be calling him all kinds of names, and they would. And that's why it's not to them about the race, it's about the philosophy, and they kind of paralyze the opposition.
Don't you get the feeling that's kind of played out though, Drew? I mean, it's not just like hope so. It's like we wouldn't be having this discussion 3-4 years ago. I think the thing that really convinced me convinced me to go straight at this racism issue and just call it what it is, was when I realized that we were going to be called racist no matter what we said or did. No matter what we said or did, they're not going to give up the A-bomb. And it's a well that they've been going to. It's their unlimited credit card. And the more they go to that well, and the more they bring that card out, the less value it has. And now, to me, it's a laughingstock. When Al Sharpton calls an emergency meeting of his 8-man, highly paid, emergency diversity committee, because all of the best actor and supporting supporting actress nominees were all white, and this was when last year 12 Years a Slave won, and Best Supporting Actress was black, but that was then. The struggle continues. Then the whole thing's a scam. It's a con game. It's a joke. And he made a big mistake calling liberals racist. That was calling his limousine liberals up in the Hollywood Hills racist. Yeah, that used to work,
but that won't work
Well, that was a giant mistake. Yeah. I knew a lot of genuine, real hardcore left-wing Hollywood people who were just astonished that they could be accused of the same racism that they unjustly accuse us of every day.
Chris Rock had a routine for a while about how black people could be rich, but they weren't wealthy.
Yeah, that's right.
Oprah was rich, but it wasn't rich like Bill Gates. I thought, you know what, Chris, if that's what you're complaining about, stop complaining.
That's exactly right. It's about all we have time for today, but you can always let us know what questions you'd like answered below. For Andrew Klavan and PJTV, I'm Bill Whittle. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.